Okay, we don't have a clicker, so this will be more interactive. My name is Dr. Chiara, and it is a pleasure to be with you today. It has been about 25 years, I'm not counting too closely, since I have been in the seats that you're in as a student here at River Hill High School. And it has been a tremendous journey since then, and it is really great to be back here today. So thank you very much to the hosts. If you could please go to the next slide. And the next slide. Okay, so I mentioned it's been a journey. So in the upper left corner, that is River Hill High School. It's where we are today. I actually was a student at Wild Lake, but I started high school in the years in which Wild Lake and the Round was deconstructed and River Hill had just opened. So we were bused over here. I'm a proud student of the entire Howard County Public School System, Longfellow, Harper's Choice, Wild Lake / River Hill. And then I actually went on to Howard Community College as a Rouse Scholar. And from there, I've had a long journey of a variety of educational pursuits, but I can say I have always been focused on environmental issues. From the time I was a child and my family moved every year when I was really young, having nature be my kind of primary and most consistent best friend, through my undergraduate degrees in biology and international studies, to my master's in environmental science, and then on down the road to a doctorate in sustainability education, I have had a deep love for and connection with the natural environment and been looking for ways to help share that commitment to the environment with other people. So the journey has been a really interesting one, and what I want to share with you today is that it has this lens of focus on the environment, but really a strong lens on education. And how do we educate for positive change in the world? And how do we do that in a way where we're helping people to find their path to being their whole selves, which I think is a lot of what our previous speaker was talking about. And for me, that really transformed when I became a mom. And I really wanted to shift from an environmental career in which I was consulting, also parallel, and commuting to DC and working 60 hours a week on a computer in an office, to an environmental career where I was really connected with myself, with my family, with my community, and the natural world that I was working so hard to support. So my story today is about that journey and about the role that transformative education has played in that journey, and how I think it's a really important part of what we can do. It is Earth Day weekend, to create a greener, healthier, happier future for ourselves and for our loved ones and for our communities. Next slide. Okay, so this is a lot of words. You can look at them if you want to. So I think when I reflect on my long career in education, a lot of it's a blur. A lot of it, I remember feeling a little stressed out, maybe a little disconnected from why we were learning what we were learning and the ways in which we were learning it. And there were also a lot of really wonderful, shining moments of camaraderie and connection and feeling really grateful for where I was in those times and places. But what I've learned, and this is what I really learned as a huge aha for me during my doctoral research, is that there's something called transmissive education, and there's something called transformative education. And I kind of had this moment where I was like, oh, that blur part where I was feeling disconnected and I couldn't tell you a year later what capital was in what state of what country, that was really more transmissive. And what that means, and I'm pretty sure everybody can reflect on their own educational journeys, regardless of where you are in your lives, is when somebody is telling you something they think you need to know, and they're assuming that you're kind of an empty vessel or an empty piggy bank, sort of this idea of like, what I'm doing right now, I'm going to tell you something. And then you're supposed to absorb it and retain it and then be able to show that you know it, and then you move on to the next thing. And it's really fairly one way. And there's a lot of things that it's wonderful to learn it that way. Rote memorization of multiplication table still serves me very well. But for many things, more complex things, the types of challenges we're facing now in our communities, in our world, we need more robust, thoughtful, interactive educational approaches to supplement some of that transmissive education that we often find within our school systems. So transformative is really a different thing, and it's the thing that I now get to spend my days doing. I'm coming to you right off of my transformative morning at my workplace. It is really knowing that we aren't empty vessels, that there is a great opportunity to share knowledge amongst ourselves, to think more critically about issues, to touch it, to have an emotional, personal relationship with the subject matter. And you can't do that necessarily for everything, but especially when we're thinking about environmental issues, this is where it comes alive, and this is where people start to have a different relationship with the world around them. You can go to the next slide. So what does transformative education look like, especially when we're talking about the environment? It looks like three things, and I thought this was fascinating. In my research, I was looking at this universe of studies that came before mine where around the world, thousands of people, decades of time, if you asked environmental educators, environmental scientists, environmental activists, writers, whatever it may be, why? Why do you do this work? Why do you care so much? Why do you get up day after day when the problems can seem so big and keep doing the thing that you do? Across the board, the number one thing that people said is, well, you know, when I was a kid, we spent summers at the beach, or my grandpa had a vegetable garden, or I went fishing with my uncle. There was this time in nature that they had that was personal, that was memorable, that was really significant. And so time in nature, especially as a child, if possible, is one of the core things that translates to an active ethic of care for the environment across your entire life. It doesn't matter if you're an accountant or a CEO or a teacher, you'll maybe recycle or turn off the lights or plant the tree or make that choice to do something positive for the environment. The number two thing that was said across the world, across decades, and I'm wondering if maybe some of this is changing over time, it's a whole other question, is that there was somebody that they felt close to that was a positive role model. So for many people, it was a parent or a grandparent or a scout leader or a teacher. Somebody was saying, hey, let's pick up that piece of trash. Hey, did you know that that's a tomato plant and you can plant it in your backyard? Or let's go plant some trees today. Whatever it may be, there was somebody who was showing that the environment wasn't just this thing to move through or to use for our advantage, but it was to be noticed and to be cared about. So that's the number two thing. And then the number three thing was the chance to feel like you can make a difference. I now get to run a small organic farm just up the road, and I spent all morning out there with people of all ages, parents with kids on their back, people in their 80s, and everything in between, planting trees, planting vegetables, making a hands-on difference. And so talk more about that, but whether it's a high school science class, whether it's scouts, whether it's a faith community, whether it is maybe a field trip during school, getting out there and being like, oh, we might have big problems, but I actually have done something today that feels like it made a difference. Those are the three life experiences that we can create, that we can seek out, that help us to feel like there's something that we can do to be a part of the solution around environmental issues. Next slide. And together, that is radically transformative education. So what does that mean for me? What does that mean in terms of opportunities that I might be able to share with you in our local community? So long journey since I was in this room, but 6 years ago, I took what I had learned in my doctorate degree and I transformed it into a local nonprofit. The previous speaker had talked about mission and how important that is. The mission of the Community Ecology Institute is to cultivate communities where people and nature thrive together. And what we know from research from all over the world is that when people are outside, it is so good for our mental health, our physical health, our sense of connection to our community, but it's also, again, creating the conditions for us to come full circle and care about the environment. So community could be the scale of a school, could be the scale of a faith organization. We could be talking about all of River Hill, all of Columbia, all of Howard County. It can look a variety of different ways, but we're helping to get communities back outside, whether it's outside in your school grounds, out your front door, but to notice the environment around us, and to work at the intersections of education, environment, equity, and health. And those are all intersected per my beautiful butterfly. So that is what the nonprofit does. Again, we're 6 years old. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see where we're based. So I spent the morning working with, I would say, probably over 90 different people at Freetown Farm, which is right behind actually Appleton High School. And we were doing a wide variety of things, but we had the chance to purchase this farm in 2019 to protect it from development and to make it accessible as an experiential environmental education center for the community. It is grassroots, it is get down and dirty, but it's become an incredible place of diverse common ground for our community during a very short period of time and during a very difficult time, as everybody has been referencing the pandemic. But we have found silver linings, and that has been one of the few safe places that people could go, being outside, but also be welcomed with a smile and by name, and be able a chance to feel like they can make a difference and to have transformative experiences. And it's not formal education in many ways, although I will talk about some programs that are, but just the chance of getting out and getting your hands dirty and doing something in community where you feel like you can make a positive difference is an incredible antidote to the isolation and challenges that we've all been experiencing the last few years. So we have grown radically. We are 44 times bigger today than we were 6 years ago as an organization. It's just been astronomical. Next slide. So what I wanted to talk about is, what does transformative education look like? For us, it looks like a lot of different programs. Our original program was called Columbia Families in Nature. It's now called a Community of Families in Nature because we have people who come from DC, from Rockville, from Baltimore. People were coming from a much broader stretch of ranges of area. And that program is seeking to help combat something that's called nature deficit disorder. We as a culture spend more than 93% of our time indoors, whether it's work, whether it's school, whether it's screens, whether it's extracurriculars. We have really retreated indoors, and it's been documented that that's not so good for us. It's also not so good for us caring about the environment on which we depend. So this program is specifically getting families, parents, grandparents, their kids, nieces, nephews, outside. We're gonna get dirty, we're gonna clean up a stream, we're gonna plant trees. Every week we offer an event that helps people get outside and reconnect within their family, with each other, and with other people that they might not have met, but then they're out having these 3 life experiences that we know equal transformative education in the environmental space. So that was our first program. That program is actually 8 years old now. It was the seed of the nonprofit. The next program that we created is called Roots and Wings Learning Community, and that is to work with kids elementary and middle school aged and have them have really in-depth 2 to 4 days a week learning that's outside, that's garden-based, and they are having this incredible journey that is truly transformative. The testimonials we receive for the experience in those kids can often move me to tears. Next slide. And then our 2 more recent programs, and this is one I wanted to highlight for you all today, is we have a high school and a college internship program. We do have an intensive summer program that's really focused on teaching people issues around food justice, food sovereignty, how do you grow food from seed to harvest and get it out to the community, and how do you enjoy it? One of our lead program managers is an incredible chef. So that is having open applications right now. It's over at Freetown Farm, and it is a really wonderful program. During the first year of the pandemic, those interns became a family unto themselves. And the photo is our first graduating class having a ceremony in the cabbage patch of one of our gardens. So that's a really joyful program. There's opportunities now. And then our Nourishing Gardens program. Ishan is an avid gardener, if you all didn't know that. And he asked me to speak a little bit about that program and regenerative agriculture. Nourishing Gardens seeks to transform lawns throughout our community into ecologically beneficial food growing spaces. So we're helping the environment. We are growing food right outside the doors of where people live, learn, work, and play. But we're also doing it in a way where we're providing education for people from 16 on up and helping them to become a workforce for getting these gardens in at schools, faith communities, people's front and backyards. Next slide. How do we do what we do? So last year we had over 1,000 different people volunteer with us, which I think is incredible. The year before that it was 500. The year before that was about 250. So almost every year our volunteerism doubles. I don't know that we could house 2,000 volunteers, but it's all about collaboration. I think one of the things that's really important around transformative education is this notion of collaboration. I think it's really common to get in this competitive mindset, like I need to get mine, am I first, how can I protect my resources? We are so about collaboration. We have over 12 different organizations that have a footprint at Freetown Farm. The farm is only 6.5 acres. It's not a big place, but we come together to steward the farm together, to make demonstration spaces so the community at large can see what's possible around environmental stewardship. So whether it's the NAACP or HopeWorks or the Third or any of these other organizations, we are all out there working together, which is how we go so far and how we do it with such joy. Next one. All right, and so I talked about most of this. Over 1,000 volunteers. We have grown over 10,000 pounds of food, most of which we have donated to those in need. And one of the things that we're most proud about is demonstrating land-based climate solutions at Freetown Farms through the Nourishing Gardens program, but also just how we take care of the entire 6.5 acres. And as a nod to Ishan again, I wanted to share this idea that to plant a garden is to believe in tomorrow. It's one quote I saw a lot around Earth Day. This idea too that if you want to plant a tree, it's one of the best things you can do for the future, and it's a very future hopeful thing to do. So if you want to do something on Earth Day weekend and you haven't already, whether it's going out and planting a native tree, going out and planting a small garden, even on a container on your front step, the idea of growing something is transformative education in action. You are literally generating something new, doing something where you're outside. I bring a friend, bring a sibling, bring a child, and you're with somebody you care about, and you're doing something that makes a difference. And if you wanted to screenshot it or look at it later, this checklist on the right is showing 10 things that you can do with the way you engage in caring for your land, any land that you have access to, in having it to be more ecologically beneficial and more sustainable. So I'm not going to get